The company auditorium was packed that morning. Giant screens displayed gleaming charts while executives in tailored suits moved about with airs of importance. At the center of it all stood Clara, the youngest executive ever to assume the presidency of the family-founded group. Her heels clicked sharply against the marble floor, her posture flawless. But behind her steady gaze lingered something few could see: the exhaustion of constantly battling the distrust of men who had never accepted her leadership. And among them was Marcelo, the oldest partner, the kind of man who had arrogance behind false smiles. That morning, he had something special planned, to humiliate Clara in front of everyone. "Gentlemen," Marcelo began, his poisonous smile curving as he walked toward the microphone, "it's clear that the president's decisions are leading this company nowhere. With all due respect, perhaps it's time to reconsider whether a young woman, lacking real-life experience, should remain at the helm of something so grand." The murmurs were immediate. Executives whispered, some with pity, others with malice. Clara held her composure, though her heart raced. It wasn't the first attempt to undermine her, but this public attack cut deep. And then an unexpected voice pierced the silence. "With all due respect, Mr. Marcelo, numbers don't lie. And the numbers show that under the president's leadership, the company has grown in areas where it once only bled losses." All heads turned. And there he was, Vinícius, tall, striking, his neatly kept red beard framing a determined face. He clutched the laptop to his chest like a shield. No suit, no tie, just a plain shirt and jeans. Among that sea of polished executives, he stood out like a flare. "And who are you to interrupt this meeting?" Marcelo growled, irritation flickering behind his smile. "Just a data analysis intern," Vinícius replied, his tone firm, respectful. "But I've reviewed all the reports from last week. If anyone would like to challenge me, I can project the graphs right now." Clara's eyes widened for an instant. Never had an intern dared to expose himself in such a way. It was bold, maybe reckless, but there was sincerity in him that cut through the air like a blade. Marcelo forced out a laugh that rang hollow. "So now any boy thinks he understands business?" Vinícius stood his ground, laptop steady in his grip. He drew a breath and said, "With all respect, I'm not just any boy. I'm someone who believes in fairness. And if the president is being unfairly accused, it's my duty to show the facts." The silence that followed was deafening. Clara studied him as if trying to decipher who he truly was. He had nothing to gain. In fact, he risked losing his job by stepping in. And yet here he was, defending her without hesitation. "Bring the numbers up here," Clara commanded at last, a faint smile touching her lips. Vinícius connected the laptop to the main screen. Colorful charts flashed. 18% growth in previously neglected sectors. The first signs of international expansion bearing fruit. Stable profit margins. With each slide, the whispers shrank to nothing. By the end, even the skeptics sat in silence. Clara rose, crossed the stage, and spoke clearly. "Thank you, Vinícius. It's good to know there are still people who believe in hard work over intrigue." Marcelo bit his lip, beaten, but deep inside, he swore vengeance. He would not forgive the audacity of an intern or the gratitude Clara had shown him. As faint applause rippled through the room, Clara and Vinícius shared a fleeting glance. It lasted only a moment, yet something stirred between them, strange, inexplicable, a recognition, a connection that transcended that crowded auditorium. He, with his strong frame and rugged presence, but eyes burning with youthful dreams and courage. She, elegant and commanding, yet harboring a loneliness carefully veiled behind her cold poise. Fate, mischievous as ever, had crossed their paths, and nothing would ever be the same again. The auditorium emptied quickly, but Clara couldn't get Vinícius out of her mind. There was something about him that unsettled her. His courage, his sincerity, the unshakable way he stood tall in the face of power. She needed to understand this young man who had dared to challenge her so publicly. "Vinícius," she called, her tone calm but firm, as he was still gathering papers in the conference room. "Would you walk with me in my office? I'd like to talk about the data you presented." The intern swallowed hard. He knew that one wrong word could cost him his position, yet the chance to speak with Clara in private was irresistible. As they walked, the company's corridor seemed unusually silent, as if everyone sensed something extraordinary had just occurred. Clara opened the door to her office and gestured toward a chair near her desk. "I know you didn't have to expose yourself like that," she began, arms crossed. "But your analysis was accurate. Impressive, actually." Vinícius felt his face flush. Thank you, ma'am. I just thought it was the right thing to do." She leaned forward slightly, studying him with sharp eyes. "Tell me, have you always been this bold? Or did you only dare because this mattered to you?" He drew a steady breath. "It's not boldness, just justice. I hate seeing injustice, and I couldn't just stand by." Clara's lips curved into the faintest smile, a rare gesture from someone so accustomed to wearing a cold mask. "Interesting. You have more courage than I expected." Meanwhile, Marcelo lingered in the distance, hidden behind a column, his gaze burning with resentment. He realized Vinícius wasn't just another intern. There was something in him that could stir Clara in ways dangerous to Marcelo's plans. Already, schemes formed in his mind. "First, I'll discredit him publicly," Marcelo muttered under his breath. "Then I'll prove to her that trusting a humble student is a colossal mistake." Back in her office, Clara concluded, "Your data is solid, and I'll take it directly to the board. If something goes wrong, it'll be because of our decision, not a lack of information." Vinícius nodded, pride and nerves clashing inside him. "Understood, ma'am." But before he could rise, Clara added, her voice so soft it almost slipped past him, yet the weight of it made his throat tighten. "Vinícius, don't hide behind others. If something needs to be said, speak it yourself. Truth always forces its way through." He smiled then, feeling for the first time that someone truly saw his worth, not because of a title, but because of who he was. As he stepped out of the office, Marcelo was already moving his first pawns on the board, whispering rumors, setting subtle traps, manipulating colleagues to doubt Vinícius's competence. But Clara was beginning to sense that Vinícius was not the kind of man to be easily broken. The tension was only beginning. Between Vinícius's resolve, Clara's intrigue, and Marcelo's seething resentment, the stage was set for a story of romance, intrigue, and social battles no one would forget. In the days that followed, Vinícius realized his humble internship would not go unnoticed for long. Every report he submitted was scrutinized with double the attention. Every meeting felt like a minefield, and every comment from Marcelo dripped with veiled disdain. Clara, meanwhile, couldn't get the young intern out of her thoughts. What struck her wasn't just his courage. There was intelligence, persistence, and a disarming sincerity that clashed with everything the corporate world represented. She often caught herself observing him discreetly in meetings, his way of speaking, the firmness in his convictions, and even the restrained nervousness behind his imposing, manly presence. One afternoon, Clara asked Vinícius to personally review an important project. They met in the empty conference room. The air was thick with tension, but also with a strange electricity neither of them could deny. "Vinícius, I need you to review every detail of this contract. I can't afford mistakes with the board," Clara said as she handed him a stack of documents. He accepted the papers carefully, feeling the weight not only of the work but the responsibility she placed on him. "Understood. I'll check every clause." As they worked side by side, silence lingered for a moment. Clara noticed that Vinícius wasn't just reading. He was dissecting each detail with striking precision. You understand this better than many people here," she remarked, surprised. Vinícius smiled faintly, eyes still on the pages. "I've always tried to learn quickly, and when something matters, I can't ignore it." Their eyes met, and for a fleeting instant, the corporate world fell away. No pressure, no intrigue, just the two of them, bound by something neither could explain. But both felt growing stronger. Elsewhere in the company, Marcelo watched from afar. He realized Vinícius wouldn't be easily defeated. His mind raced, plotting new strategies to weaken the intern, spreading rumors about his competence, orchestrating subtle traps, even trying to destabilize Clara by pushing her into high-pressure situations. Yet the more Marcelo schemed, the closer Clara seemed to draw to Vinícius. Every challenge they faced together strengthened not only their professional partnership, but also the emotional bond quietly forming between them. At one point, as they reviewed a sales projection spreadsheet, Clara let slip the faintest smile. "You know, Vinícius, you surprise me more each day." He flushed, looking away, though he couldn't ignore the warmth her smile stirred in him. "I just want to do the right thing, and maybe impress you a little too," he admitted, trying to mask his nerves. The tension only deepened. Between the pressure to succeed, the undeniable pull growing between them, and Marcelo's constant shadow, the future promised fierce conflicts, difficult decisions, and moments of raw emotion. That first encounter in the auditorium had already changed everything. But now, side by side in the conference room, Clara and Vinícius were beginning to realize that this bond might grow into something neither of them was prepared to face, not emotionally nor socially. As dusk settled over the city, the company loomed like a giant chessboard. Every move Marcelo plotted, every decision Clara made, every steady step Vinícius took could alter the fate of them all. And in both their hearts, one truth was already clear. Nothing would ever be the same again. The next morning, Vinícius arrived at the office with a distinct sense that something had shifted. Subtle whispers among colleagues, discreet glances, even the air itself felt heavier. Marcelo had begun his first strike, undermining the intern's credibility without Clara noticing right away. "Are you sure these numbers are correct?" Marcelo asked in an almost casual tone during the team meeting, his lips curling into a venomous smile as he fixed his eyes on Vinícius. Vinícius drew a steady breath, feeling the weight of every gaze on him. He knew that any slip now would be magnified, yet despite the nerves tightening in his chest, he stood firm. "Yes, the data has been reviewed and validated. I can show the detailed calculations if anyone has doubts." Marcelo gave a stifled chuckle, though the tension in the room was palpable. He sought to humiliate Vinícius discreetly, subtle enough not to alert Clara, but sharp enough to cast shadows of doubt. From her seat in the corner, Clara caught the nuance immediately. A mix of indignation and respect stirred within her. Indignation at the attack, respect for Vinícius's unshaken response. Deep inside, something began to shift. She no longer saw just an intern. She saw someone bold enough to stand tall against power with both intelligence and courage. Later, after the meeting, Clara summoned Vinícius to her office. When the door closed behind them, a comfortable silence filled the space. "Vinícius, you handle Marcelo's provocation remarkably well," Clara said, her tone serious yet tinged with admiration. Very few would have stayed so composed. He shrugged lightly, masking the quiet pride swelling inside. "I didn't want to cause problems. I just wanted the truth to speak for itself." Clara's lips curved into a rare smile, and for a moment the corporate world seemed to vanish. "The truth does speak, but courage like yours is rare." As their eyes locked, Marcelo watched from a distance, his frustration simmering. He could see it, this connection forming between Clara and Vinícius, and it was not merely professional. Something stronger, more dangerous to control, was taking shape. "If she starts trusting this kid, I'll need to intensify my moves," Marcelo thought, already scheming new strategies to fracture their growing bond. But Vinícius, though young, was far from naive. He sensed the tension, the traps being set, and yet he also sensed something else, that Clara trusted him differently, as though they shared an unspoken alliance against any adversary. By the end of the day, walking through the hushed corridors, Vinícius's mind lingered on Clara, the powerful businesswoman he barely knew, but who already stirred a strange blend of admiration and unease in his chest. Meanwhile, in her office, Clara stood by the glass wall, the city stretched before her, thinking of the young man who had, without even realizing it, upended her world with integrity and quiet courage. The chemistry between them grew, silent but undeniable, and Marcelo, despite his manipulations, was beginning to see that this game would not be as easy as he imagined. The first attack had passed, but the war had only just begun. The next morning, the office buzzed with a different kind of energy. Whispers floated from desk to desk. Discreet glances followed Vinícius, and faint smiles carried a trace of curiosity. Marcelo had launched his first direct offensive, subtle rumors questioning Vinícius's competence, planting doubt about his place in the company. "I heard the intern doesn't really have enough experience to handle big projects," a colleague murmured casually. as though sharing a harmless comment. Vinícius felt the tension in the air, but he stayed calm. He knew any overreaction would only fuel Marcelo's scheme. He drew in a steady breath, keeping his posture firm and composed. Clara, passing to the corridor, noticed the looks and the whispers instantly. Her patience, tested time and again, began to boil. She approached Vinícius quietly, her hand brushing his shoulder. "Don't worry about what they say. You're doing the right thing," she said, her voice a blend of firmness and warmth. Vinícius managed a smile, bolstered by her presence. "Thank you, ma'am. Your words mean a lot," he replied, though his hands still trembled with nerves. Meanwhile, from a distance, Marcelo watched, satisfied with the small stir he had caused. What he hadn't expected was that Clara would not only shield Vinícius, but also begin drawing closer to him in ways that unsettled Marcelo's plans. Later, while reviewing a project, Clara and Vinícius found themselves alone in her office. A comfortable silence hung between them, charged with an unmistakable electricity. "You're different from anyone I've ever met here," Clara said at last, breaking the quiet with a subtle smile. "I just try to be honest and do my best," Vinícius replied, his gaze dropping as his heartbeat quickened. The atmosphere seemed to conspire in their favor. Sunlight pouring through the windows, reflections dancing on the glass of the laptop, and that silence heavy with unspoken meaning. Clara realized that Vinícius was not just an intern. He carried something that disarmed her, something no arrogant executive had ever managed. As they left the office together, laughing softly at an offhand remark, Marcelo exhaled sharply. He knew he needed a more elaborate plan, because his growing closeness between Clara and Vinícius could not be allowed to continue. That day, without even realizing it, Clara and Vinícius began to build something stronger than rumors or intrigue. A quiet trust, a connection that deepened with every glance and every small gesture. A romance was taking root, and Marcelo had yet to realize just how much that bond would threaten his schemes. It was late afternoon, and once again the meeting room was full. An internal company event was about to begin, the presentation of new projects to investors. Vinícius, still just an intern, had been invited to attend, but Marcelo had planned to make him the center of an embarrassing scene. "Miss Clara, may I have a word?" Marcelo approached her with a calculated smile, holding a neatly arranged stack of documents. "What do you want, Marcelo?" Clara replied, calm but with sharpness in her eyes that betrayed her irritation. "Oh, nothing serious, just a last-minute suggestion. Perhaps Vinícius shouldn't be presenting the results on his own. After all, he's still only an intern." Clara drew in a deep breath. She could see right through Marcelo's maneuver, put Vinícius in a position where failure seemed inevitable, forcing him into a public mistake. Instead of backing down, she smiled with quiet resolve. "No, he will present. I trust him." As the investors settled into their seats, Vinícius felt the weight of every glance, every whisper amplified in his chest. But when Clara looked at him with unshakable confidence, something shifted. He straightened his back, adjusted his laptop, and began. His voice rang firm across the room. Marcelo tried to cut in several times, making ironic comments and questioning the young man's competence. But Vinícius didn't falter. He answered clearly, intelligently, and with composure. With every slide, Clara's confidence in him grew, and so did the investors' respect. By the end, the room rose in applause. Investors were impressed not only with the data, but with Vinícius's poise and dedication. What was meant to be a trap had become a resounding triumph. In the corridor afterward, Clara approached him, her smile lighting up the space. "You were incredible, Vinícius. I'm impressed not only with your work, but with your courage." He smiled, feeling the warmth of her words, and answered a little awkwardly. "I just did what needed to be done, and I couldn't have done it without your support." As they shared that moment, Marcelo stood watching from a distance, irritated and powerless. He realized that every attempt to undermine Vinícius only tightened the bond between him and Clara. There, in that quiet hallway, a connection was forming, trust, respect, and something deeper neither of them was ready to name, though both could feel it growing stronger with every second. Marcelo's planned humiliation had failed, but the war was far from over, and the villain was already plotting bolder, more dangerous strategies to tear the unlikely pair apart. The days that followed were a blend of tension and unspoken connection. Marcelo wasn't satisfied with small defeats. He wanted to shake Vinícius emotionally and chip away at Clara's trust in him. He began spreading harsher rumors about the young man's personal life, hinting at secrets that could compromise his work. Clara soon noticed the weight of anxiety pressing down on Vinícius. Determined to intervene, she called him into her office, away from curious eyes. "Vinícius, I've heard some things being said," Clara began, her voice steady but tinged with concern. "Don't believe everything you hear. I trust you." He lowered his gaze, feeling the sting of those words and the emotional toll of the gossip. "I know, but sometimes it's hard to ignore. People judge so quickly, and I don't want to disappoint you." Clara leaned forward, resting her hands on the desk between them. "You won't disappoint me. I see your dedication, your courage. I know who you are." Their eyes locked, and a silent current passed between them. Vinícius's heart quickened as he realized this wasn't just professional trust anymore. It was something deeper, more personal. From a distance, Marcelo watched, realizing his manipulations were failing. Each strike only seemed to strengthen the bond between Clara and Vinícius. Later that day, Clara asked Vinícius to join her on a special project outside the office. They walked side by side to the corridors until they reached the company's inner garden, a quiet place bathed in soft light, with wooden benches nestled among the greenery. "You know, Vinícius," Clara broke the silence, her tone softer now. "Sometimes we forget that behind titles and positions, we're still just people, and people can surprise each other." He smiled, a mix of nerves and joy stirring within him. "You surprised me first, Clara. I never imagined someone as powerful as you could be so human." A faint blush touched her cheeks as she looked away, though a smile lingered. "Human, maybe that's exactly what we need to be, even in the middle of all this pressure." The romantic tension between them deepened with every word, every shared glance. And while Marcelo continued scheming to tear them apart, Clara and Vinícius were discovering that together they could withstand far more than gossip or intrigue. The game of power and desire was only beginning, and their connection was becoming harder and harder to deny. It was a rainy morning, and the company felt quieter than usual. The heavy weather mirrored the tension Marcelo had been cultivating. This time, he had prepared something bold: to stage a critical failure during an important video conference with international investors, hoping to humiliate Vinícius and make Clara question her trust in him. Vinícius was ready to present the final project reports when, suddenly, a technical glitch, deliberately orchestrated by Marcelo, struck. The laptop froze, the charts vanished from the screen, and a red warning flashed across the monitor, drawing immediate murmurs from the investors. "This is a disaster," Vinícius muttered, a chill running down his spine. "Calm down, Vinícius," Clara said quickly, stepping closer. "Take a deep breath. Focus. You can fix this." He looked at her, feeling the strength in her unwavering support. Warmth spread through his chest, igniting something inside him. Despite the crushing pressure, he knew he wasn't alone. With everyone watching, Vinícius rebooted the laptop, pulled up backup data, and with a blend of nerves and determination, resumed the presentation. His voice was steady, each word deliberate, each number explained with clarity. Clara watched, captivated not only by his competence, but also by the courage in every gesture. Their eyes met for a brief instant, and in that look, no words were needed. A silent yet powerful connection passed between them. Trust and partnership laid bare. Across the room, Marcelo's face burned with rage. His carefully planned sabotage had backfired spectacularly. Worse still, every failed attempt only seemed to strengthen the bond between Clara and Vinícius. When the video conference ended, the investors praised Clara for her team's excellent work and discreetly sent compliments to Vinícius as well. He felt proud, but above all, grateful for Clara's steady support. "You saved the day, Vinícius," she said, moving closer and lightly touching his arm, a gesture of reassurance and closeness. "We saved the day together," he replied, the tension giving way to a shared sense of triumph. As they walked down the corridor, the rain still poured outside, but inside them there was warmth, confidence, and a closeness impossible to ignore. The romance that had quietly grown with each challenge now felt undeniable. Marcelo, realizing his schemes were failing, began plotting even more aggressive strategies. Yet Clara and Vinícius had discovered something he hadn't anticipated. Together, they were far stronger than any intrigue he could weave. The battle was far from over, but in that moment, they shared something untouchable: trust, courage, and the spark of feeling impossible to deny. In the days that followed, Marcelo realized that professional schemes weren't working. Vinícius stood firm, and Clara supported him with conviction. Frustrated, Marcelo decided to strike on a more personal, emotional level. He began spreading rumors about Vinícius's private life, insinuating hidden motives or suggesting he was using Clara to climb the corporate ladder. When Vinícius arrived at the office, he noticed the strange looks, the whispers growing louder and more persistent. The weight of gossip could crush any young man, but he wasn't alone. Clara, sensing the impact, called him into a private meeting. "Vinícius, ignore what they're saying," Clara told him, her voice steady but laced with concern. "I trust you. I know you'd never take advantage of me or this company." A knot tightened in his stomach, but her presence eased his heart. Thank you, Clara. It means so much to know you believe in me." As they spoke, the tension softened into something more intimate. Their eyes met, and for a brief moment, the corporate world vanished. There were no rumors, no envy, only trust and connection. From a distance, Marcelo watched. He realized that every personal attack only drew Clara and Vinícius closer. Frustration churned inside him, and he began plotting something bigger. He would use Clara's mother, rigid, controlling, and never approving of relationships beyond her social circle, as his weapon. Meanwhile, Vinícius and Clara found strength in their growing bond. Each challenge they faced together only deepened their connection, forging an alliance even the shrewdest villain would struggle to break. At the end of the day, as they left the office bathed in the soft glow of sunset, Clara turned to Vinícius. "I don't know how, but I feel like together we can face anything." He smiled, his heart racing. "I feel the same, Clara. Nothing will come between us." Marcelo, seething with frustration, understood that his emotional war had only just begun. But Clara and Vinícius were becoming stronger, united by trust, courage, and something deeper, something no intrigue could destroy. Their romance grew quietly, but with intensity, as the battle between love and manipulation burned brighter than ever. Marcelo was determined. If subtle attacks and rumors weren't working, he would need be more aggressive. His new plan was to create a situation that would put Clara and Vinícius in direct conflict, attempting to undermine the trust that was steadily growing between them. For this, he intended to enlist the influence of Clara's mother, the rigid, controlling woman who had never accepted Vinícius. The next morning, Clara received an unexpected phone call. Her mother wanted to speak immediately about her relationship with Vinícius. The tone was commanding, as always, and a chill ran down Clara's spine. Meanwhile, Vinícius tried to focus on his tasks but felt the tension thickening in the air. He knew something was about to happen, and that Marcelo was behind every move. In the conference room, Clara's mother entered with impeccable posture and a look of disapproval. "Clara, we need to talk about you and this intern." Clara took a deep breath, holding back the rising anxiety. "Mother, he's not just an intern. He's honest, dedicated, and trustworthy." Vinícius, present in the room by chance, felt directly addressed. "With all due respect, ma'am, I'm not here to cause trouble. I'm just doing my job to the best of my ability." The tension was palpable. Marcelo watched from a distance, pleased with the charged atmosphere he had created, convinced he could finally break the bond between Clara and Vinícius. But something unexpected happened. Clara stood her ground, facing her mother with determination. "Mother, I've made my decision. Vinícius is important to me, and together we will face any obstacle." Vinícius, moved by her courage and trust, felt a wave of emotion course through him. For the first time, the sensation of being truly supported and accepted was complete. The look between Clara and Vinícius was intense, silent, yet charged with an unspoken promise. No matter what Marcelo or anyone else tried, they would remain united. Marcelo realized his plan had failed. All the manipulation, rumors, and emotional attacks had only strengthened the couple's alliance. He knew he would need something even bolder if he hoped to separate these two determined hearts. As the tension in the room eased, Clara and Vinícius exchanged a discreet smile, almost as if silently celebrating their victory. The romance, which had quietly grown amid intrigue and challenges, was now undeniable. They had faced their first major obstacle together, and their connection was becoming increasingly intense, unbreakable, and profound. Love had been born from courage, trust, and loyalty, and no intrigue could ever erase it. In the days that followed, Marcelo realized that none of his plans were working. Vinícius remained steadfast, and Clara grew increasingly confident and determined to protect him. So he decided to make a final move, confront the couple directly, and try to discredit Vinícius once and for all. During a board meeting, Marcelo highlighted supposed flaws in Vinícius's work, attempting to cast doubt in Clara's mind. "Ms. Clara, I must warn you, this intern may not be up to our expectations." Silence fell over the room. All eyes turned to Vinícius. He felt the weight of the attack, but this time he was not alone. Clara stood up, crossing her arms firmly. "Marcelo, I will not tolerate this kind of behavior in our team. Vinícius has proven his competence multiple times and will continue to do so." Clara's tone was firm, yet filled with emotion. Each word conveyed confidence and support, completely disarming Marcelo. He realized there was no longer any room for manipulation. The bond between Clara and Vinícius was solid, public, and undeniable. Vinícius took a deep breath and responded clearly, showing confidence and maturity. "Thank you for your support, Ms. Clara. I want to continue proving that I can live up to the trust placed in me." Colleagues in the room began to applaud discreetly, and even the investors attending the meeting felt the determination of both. Marcelo, defeated, left the room speechless, realizing that his attempt to separate them had been futile. Later, as the day's pressure eased, Clara and Vinícius found a moment of peace in the company's internal garden. The sun was beginning to set, and the golden light reflected on their faces, illuminating their smiles. "We made it through all of this together," said Vinícius, holding her hand. "Yes, and it only became clearer that nothing and no one can separate us," replied Clara, smiling moved. They embraced, feeling the weight of all obstacles lift. Their love, born amid challenges, intrigues, and attacks, now solidified in an undeniable way. As they looked at each other, they knew that together they could face any future adversity. And although Marcelo still lingered as a distant shadow, his defeat was evident. Love, trust, and courage had triumphed. The romance between Clara and Vinícius blossomed, strong, intense, and unshakable, marking the beginning of a new phase in their lives, both professionally and emotionally.